this time, Martin Odegaard.
Zinchenko from Kepa Arrizabalaga. Martinelli tiptoeing in. Predatory, perfect. There is a gorgeous arrogance about Arsenal now.
It really is. They are enjoying every second of this.
Hello and welcome to not another Arsenal podcast, aka the Lucas Podolski of Arsenal podcasts. I'm going with that, I guess. Carl Jenkinson, there you go. How do I mess that up for an entire season? My goodness, I got to stop taking like 2 weeks. Oh, you have the Podolski one on. Look at that, Kelly. I forgot. Look at that. Coincidentally, that works out well for me. This is not another Arsenal podcast. There you go. Carl Jenkins podcast. I butched this completely. And we are going to talk about transfers. We took 2 weeks off, boys, and my goodness, were they just waiting for us to take time off? They consistently hear me say that I hate talking about transfer news and updates like just recurring. And Lord knows if you Google search or just like Twitter search Gyokeres, I mean, I'm sure it's over your timeline about 100 to 200 times a day at the very least. So long dragged out saga, if you will. Keep on hitting headlines about it being on the brink of collapse, and more news saying it's steady. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about it as if it's confirmed, along with a few other ones that we got down the pipeline. So it's a little bit of catching up. We've been off for 2 full weeks, and luckily for us, the Arsenal gave us plenty of opportunity and plenty of time to get ahead of things and have plenty of news to chat about transfers this time around. First and foremost, as always, I like to start off the podcast introducing my co-host, Chris. Welcome back, Chris.
Hey, guys. Good to see you all. Kelly, it's been a while. 2 days since we last hung out, actually in person, which is great.
In person, in a real human life.
It was great. Lots going on in life right now since we last podcasted. I've spent 4 days in the mountains with my younger son. I took my older son to his last basketball tournament in Minneapolis, which is when I got to see the good Kelly. Had some beers and some great conversation. My family bought a new car, so lots going on in my life right now. But luckily, I was able to pull myself away from it and spend 2 hours with you wackos. So looking forward to it. Should be a nice time to get out all the stuff we've been thinking about and reviewing and studying and dreaming about when it comes to transfers, because this is why we all are Arsenal fans, right? And football fans in general, is we live for the transfers more than we live for the football. So this is why we are fans, guys, right here. This podcast, this particular episode.
No, I'm willing to admit, and I've admitted this to you guys in the past in the back channel, we're like, I kind of look forward to this, man. This is like nice little detox of reality. Get to sit down, have an excuse to drink, talk Arsenal. I mean, it's hard to argue with a setup like that. As you can see, so daylight in California. So I'm spoiled over here, boys. Kelly, how about yourself? Other than visiting Chris, or technically he visited you in your home state this time around.
When we went down to Premier League Fan Fest last summer, Chris was our host, so he had to figure out where to go and kind of sometimes taxi us around the area and act as tour guide. Well, I didn't have the entire weekend's worth of responsibility. I just had one evening, and I had to pick the lowest hanging fruit possible, which is, anybody's familiar with Minneapolis, St. Paul, Surly Brewery is like one of the biggest. It's the biggest physical brewery in Minneapolis, St. Paul, but really big, awesome outdoor space, kind of easy to get in and out of, good food. So we hung out there and had some drinks and talked a little bit about Arsenal, a lot about life, and it was a lot of fun. It's always nice, Mikey, if I'm ever in your area too, I expect you to do the same thing. I'm just going to come in, make no decisions, and then tell you to tell me where to go, and we'll have a great time.
I was very demanding. Kelly is right.
Yeah. Christian, notoriously very, very difficult. Being like, yeah, cool, that sounds good. Why not? A lot of that, but
notoriously late for his beauty routine in the mornings. Yes, it takes a while to get him going. That hair doesn't just fluff itself. I can tell you that much for free.
That's right.
Love to see it. Now, well, let's deep dive into some of the conversations. And again, there's a few of them that we haven't officially got the /Orny bomb or the here we go from Fabrizio Romano, but I think it's safe to consider most of these completely done. I'm going to start from back to front because I kind of feel like the hype builds up, right? Unfortunately for a defensive midfielder and a defender, they don't get the same hype as a striker. So starting from the back, and it's actually one of the latest transfers that we got going on, is Christian Mosquera from Valencia coming over for 15 million plus 5 allegedly, 20 million total. So right side of center back, if I'm not mistaken, you could tell me if I'm completely butchering because I'm 100% sure that my co-host has done substantially more scouting than I have on all of these players probably. But
about 20 minutes worth, Mike. About 20 minutes worth.
Solid. That's 20 more, 100% of 20 more minutes than I have invested into this, to be completely honest with you. No, I remember seeing him play a handful of times for Valencia just because I occasionally pick up on Spanish teams. But yeah, I mean, again, man, I always plead the fifth here, plead my ignorance. It's a signing at the very least. I'll add to this is it's another depth option. Stacks up our middle, our center back situation. We in the past had to move Ben White towards that area occasionally. I think Calafiore would play at the left side of center back. So again, this entire window has been about adding depth. We've signed 6-7 players total thus far. Haven't sold one. So I think it's fair to say that overall our floor took an immense step upwards. Our bench all of a sudden is full of professionals instead of academy players, which is a massive thing for a team that's trying to compete on multiple fronts. But talk to me about Mosquera's arrival, and just for SNGs, Chris, do you think this has any impact whatsoever, considering that Kivier, the transfer rumors of his potential departure back to Serie A, they kind of seem to not go away. A, B, he definitely put himself on the transfer window list, and as far as performances go in the second half of that season, he really represented it well in the absence of Saliba. So if there's a sellable asset, I mean, his name can come up.
Well, Mike, when it comes to having a full squad of professionals, we're only 4 months away from an injury crisis where we're having academy kids back on the bench. But I digress. As long as we can keep healthy, we look really good from a floor standpoint. And yes, before I did a little bit of research yesterday and a little bit today, Christian Mosquera was not a guy I was very familiar with. I knew the name. I knew he was a guy that was talked about that had, some good pedigree. He's just turned 21, but I didn't know much more than that. So read a few scouting reports. I looked at a few YouTube comps. What I can say just from that very kind of pedestrian look at him is that he is both a right-sided center back and a left-sided center back. The 2 years ago, he played on the right side last year because he had an emerging talent come through on the right side. He got moved over to the left side, and that is because he is incredibly two-footed. So he can distribute really well on both feet. He tends to be a better 1v1 defender on the right-hand side, but he can defend the left-hand side. He just ends up taking a few more chances because he doesn't feel quite as comfortable defending off of his wrong foot. He plays a lot like what Saliba did when Saliba came to the club, in that he is still quite raw, but he's got a lot of the same attributes. He's long, he's fast, he defends space pretty well. In fact, sometimes he even plays right back for Valencia. He played there, I think, a handful of games. So he is versatile in that way. And I do have some comfort that he'll be able to play a high line in time at a Premier League level. So that's really good as well. He loves a tackle. He's got really long legs, so he loves to use those to either make stand-up tackles or sliding tackles. And he did a phenomenal job in a couple of clips I saw against Real Madrid against both Vinicius Jr. and Mbappe in space. So all in all, obviously I'm watching comps, which means I'm seeing the best of him, and I haven't seen a fail comp, which is obviously going to highlight his shortcomings. But for a 21-year-old, just turned 21-year-old defender, who will, I think, in time be able to future-proof that side of the center back role, which is Saliba's side, especially I think that's probably his stronger side, in case Saliba decides he's not going to re-sign a contract or Madrid coming with a serious offer. We've got a guy who in theory could grow into that role. I'm not saying he's going to be as good as Saliba, but he's got a lot of the raw attributes that a young Saliba had that, if nurtured and developed properly, could become a Saliba light or even something close to a Saliba. So yeah, it's a really exciting signing, especially at 15 million. Which is actually even less than we bought Saliba for, which I think we all thought was, at least, especially in hindsight, an obvious steal out of France. So yeah, good signing.
It's another. I kind of like this Arsenal signing of opportunity stuff and leveraging a player's desire to come here instead of being leveraged for new contracts. I think that's something that will be a repeat as we kind of go through everything here. So yeah. I can't claim to know much about Mosquera other than his name. He's perpetually on the list of best U21 defenders, U21 central defenders, yada, yada. I do try to avoid La Liga mostly, aside from the top matches, because I don't know who anybody is and I don't care. And I find that league to be a little bit annoying because of how big of a gap there is between the top cluster and everybody else. But yeah, I mean, by all accounts, this is an incredibly reasonable fee. I mean, even if he's a Premier League, low-level Premier League backups can cost you 15 million, especially if you're a club with financial resource. So getting this guy on before the last year of his contract, when he had the option to get a pay raise and stay there, and getting him to take a backup role and like Christian said, future-proofing across the back line, that's a really big deal. And I think we haven't been able to backfill effectively. And likely, here's my kind of bold hope / prediction, is that this will encourage us to rotate more frequently. And part of the deal is going to be, if we're going to pay this money for these guys, we're understanding that these people are going to play, because we can't tank asset value. And I would be shocked if Bird has been pretty effective on the incomings, but that's likely what another tier of his attack and kind of making the club function better. There's going to be a selling feature, so we'll see how he does now, as we'll talk about. But also once we pay the money and get the players, we can't just flog our first 11 until they drop. You have the depth now. Yeah. Now it's time to use the depth and use it to make us better.
Digi Scott makes a good point in the chat that losing Tommy and gaining Mosquera isn't an upgrade yet, as aside from availability. And I agree with that in terms of like the level. Like, obviously Tomiyasu is a veteran who's played a lot of international football, a lot of club football. He certainly would be, if he was healthy, better now than Mosquera is. But we had to move on because he wasn't available for pretty much 2 years straight. Mm-hmm. And I think Mosquera is the Tomiyasu replacement because of his versatility. Mm-hmm. To your point earlier, Mike, if we end up selling Kivior, I think we might see another defender come in. And I think that's where maybe the links to Hato from Ajax makes sense. And I know that there's a lot of heat around him right now with Chelsea looking at him. I think Liverpool are also looking at him potentially as Van Dijk eventual replacement. Mm-hmm. So if we're going to do that move and we want Hato to come in, Hato, however you say it, to be his replacement, we're going to have to move on that fairly quickly. So, but I do think that if we end up moving Kivior, there is another defender coming in at some point.
Fingers crossed. It's funny. You guys are so optimistic about like, oh yeah, we got the ball rolling on defenders or just purchasing players in general. You're like, yeah, I have no doubt that we're going to purchase another one. And I'm like, are we, dude? I mean, Jesus, it's going to put us to 8-9 players. This is absolutely amazing. I'm not like, for as much as we like to take the piss and say this isn't FIFA, Arsenal are currently kind of acting like this is FIFA. But
you know why? Because Berta operates in a way that allows us to operate this way. It's obviously it's not like ideal that you would have so much turnover year to year. But the way in which Berta operates, he has a lot of irons in the fire, and then he chooses the iron he's gonna. This is a mixed metaphor that isn't working well, but he's going to choose the iron that he likes most out of the fire and go with that one. And I have no doubts that he's probably had conversations with Hato's camp already. And it's just a matter of whether or not we're going to, move that forward. But I have no doubt he's got Hato already having a soft spot for Arsenal before we even go in there and attempt to sign him. So.
Right on. And just as a last point, BX Gunner puts availability is a good upgrade. So yeah, I mean, I've said this, and we've been podcasting since the Ozil days, boys, and you guys know that I've said this. I don't give a shit how talented you are if you're not available. So that said, like I'm choosing to look at him as an upgrade. 94 appearances total for Valencia, 82 as center back, and actually 12 at right back. So he is, as you guys said, plays with both feet and is a little bit versatile and technical enough to kind of shift around. So interesting that he did end up having to play a handful of games at right back, but it's capable. And if we know something, I mean, Lord knows that the loves converting the center back into a fullback. We've seen it with Kivior Calafiori, and we've seen it with Ben White as well. So
what is real quick, Mike? Like, if we do win stuff and do stuff too, like this is the type of player who comes in and they go, we sell him 2.5 years from now and go, why the fuck is somebody paying 40 million for Mosquera? He barely plays for Arsenal. Like that. This is the kind of, I think Dean said something in the chat, but this is the type of punt you take. It's so basically, it's like the Samuel Akanga punt, right? So like that was a good punt to take. He sucked as a Premier League player, but it was 18 million over a 5-year contract. So who fucking cares? Like, it really doesn't matter that much. And if we were better during that time, we probably could have turned him into something. Like a couple of years after it was clear that he was not going to be a Premier League level player, if we probably could have gotten that back. But you see the knock-on effects of like City and Chelsea and all these clubs. When they win stuff, it inflates the value of your secondary players anyway. And you're making a more compelling argument for getting a price for that. If he has a couple matches under his belt, even in cup competitions, and he's 23, a 23-year-old center back with good tools. Like even Chelsea, have they flipped Chalobah? They were trying to get Crystal Palace to like 40 million for Chalobah, and it's like, I mean, I guess he's a starting level player in the Premier League. I think you guys are fucking crazy, but we just bid on that for somebody too for the same reasons. So I don't know. I think the punt is even more attractive if we get some of the places where we want to go competitively, because it'll increase his value just because of his profile and who he plays for.
And it's something that I believe that City and Liverpool both did really well, that they won recently. So every time they sell a backup goalkeeper for 20, 30 million, when we're struggling to get 20 for Ramsdale, we're like, how the fuck? And they could point out he's a Premier League winner, right? And even though he didn't play enough, he was in or around the squad. So it's kind of like it gives them that kind of vibe. So here's hoping, still very young. And I think this is going to sound like insane because of, money is money. But like I like to think that for a club the size of Arsenal, I think that 10 to 20 range is something that they could I think that's gambling for them. Like, that's $20 to us, 20 million for a club the size of Arsenal. But like, if it doesn't pan out like Samuel Akanga, like it doesn't have the same impact of a 40, 50 million pound player. Like if Madueke, we're going to talk about, completely flakes, you're like, shit, that's 50 million down the drain. But I think for a club the size of Arsenal, 20 million, and that's just 15 net, depending on the add-ons, probably up to appearances or trophies. I think it's an easy gamble for them to make. Absolutely. We're going to move into midfielder section now, Kelly. I'm going to start with a player look, Zubimendi's been signed, and we kind of know what I think we spoke about him fairly extensively the last podcast about 3 weeks ago. We kind of know he's going to be right there, grounded in the middle. He's going to be our number 6. I don't think I've ever seen him play anywhere else, so I think that's going to be him. And then Declan Rice in an emergency when, I'm going to say, wink, wink, Eze plays at left 8, right? If not Kai Havertz, right? Here I am, future casting our transfers. I'm going to tell you something about Christian Norgard. I completely understood the transfer. I was completely okay with the transfer. It made all the perfect sense in the world, and I thought it was like a brilliant piece of business. I don't think I've fallen in love with a player prior to kicking a ball for Arsenal Football Club as quick as I've gone for Christian Norgard. Now, my buddy Ryan, Arslog Ryan, kind of chimed in, and he said, I'm only here for Mike's big announcement. Ooh. And he joked because I made a quiver at him earlier today, and I said, hey, I have a big announcement for you. And he goes, what's that? I'm ready to concede that Arsenal might still be a big club, right? As you guys know, I've been kind of like kicking this around. We're like, hey, I think we're losing the big club status. But that's my opinion as a non-football player. That's my opinion as a Yank. And it's very personal, right? Because you guys fight me tooth and nail on this. So does my buddy Arsblog. Arse Bros, Ryan. The point that I'm trying to make is the manner in which this guy, the video, the interviews that he gives, and how flipped and moved he is about just seeing his name on the Arsenal jersey. As James Gunnerblog did make a funny joke where, like, he saw his son dressed up in an Arsenal kit and he started to cry. And like James Gunnerblog said, or he's a massive Spurs fan and it just pains him to see his son. But I don't know. For me personally, and again, I'm speaking just on a personal side, Kelly, I think it kind of puts things into perspective as to where we stand as a club historically, and how every single one of the targets that we've been linked to always end up with the headline saying they only win at us. So, hey, very, very far from the mark on this one. So, Ryan, there is my big announcement and my admission of me being wrong. Hey, even a broken clock is right twice.
I'm telling your wife that you admitted it.
No.
There we go.
So, Norgard and Zubimendi. Zubimendis are starting. Norgards are backup, if you will. Kelly, are you fairly content with our options at 6 at this point?
Yeah, man. I mean, I think my initial reaction, it's always your prayers aren't always answered in the order they're received. So my initial reaction, Norgard, is to throw a little bit of a strop and kind of be like, oh my God, this is what we're doing. But if you actually go and peel back the layers, it's like, okay. The reason why he's coming in is we lost 2 30-plus vets from the team. It's just Zubimendi, who's never played in the league. I mean, I think it's especially given the price point, which is, what is it, like 12 plus 5 or 10 plus 5 or something absolutely like infinitesimally, like Cedric cost basically for his like loan fee. Like Cedric cost like 2/3 of this for his loan fee and wages for that 1 year before we had to sign him permanently for no reason. Like, this is really, there's punts at 20 or that Mosquera like 15, and then there's like, I mean, Norgard played 181 matches for Brentford. Like he played 116 for Brøndby before that, and he's not always a starter for Denmark, but he plays a lot for the national team in European and World Cup competition. So like, this is a good player who knows the league well. I think maybe more importantly, he seems to know his limitations, and he's a destroyer and a runner, and was the captain of that club too. So for, I think, just a player perspective, I think he had Thomas Partey with all of his personal problems, but we'll set those aside because I'm fucking sick to death of hearing people talk about that. Like, he was healthy for his contract here, and that's it. And otherwise, he was dragging a dead leg or two around constantly. And Jorginho is probably the best technical football players that's been in the Premier League in a really long time. He's like, of his generation, he is a spectacular holding midfielder, but he is old and he is small and he is fucking slow. And at some point, you are so small and so slow, it doesn't matter how technical you are, you can't play in the Premier League anymore. And I think he knew his limits, and he went back to Brazil, which I'm sure he's going to play there for 3 or 4 years and be outstanding because he doesn't have to run. So, I mean, getting this guy that has a high engine, a lot of experience, is going to do the pure defensive midfielder role too. So he's going to be able to break it up. Close out games. He actually, I think this is probably more of an outlier, but he did add some goals and assists last year, which is kind of funny to see that. I think people have been doing the side-by-sides, and I think he has scored more goals or had more goal contributions than, I can't remember what the comp was. Somebody who's got signed by one of our rivals as a forward or like a wide player had fewer goal contributions than Norgard had last year. Actually, I think that Madueke, actually had about the same or roughly the same amount of goal contributions that Norgard did. But again, another seemingly really astute signing. And Mikey, I second this too. It's very, very nice. One of two things or both things are happening. We are doing screenings on who would really be keen to come here before we start getting engaged with this. So we're not doing these protracted cycles and trying to talk people into coming here and have to motivate them with a spectacular amount of money. Or guarantee playing time. We're begging these players to come here. Well, we don't seem to be doing that anymore. We seem to be sussing out players that, or we're able to articulate these players' career paths more readily to make them very excited to come here and see a future here. Or we're doing a great job of leaking that information to make us seem more desirable because we want agents to want to bring their people here, or it's a combination of all of those things. And I think Alberta it is pretty clearly controls the story as he wants it to be controlled. And with the story that he's controlling, which is self-serving and good for the club, is we have our targets. If it's not going to work, we'll move on. We have target prices, we have players, and we are selling a very compelling project people want to come here with. And when they come here, they didn't want to go anywhere else. And that's basically the punchline that's going through the leak channels on all of it. But I do think the messaging is really, really good. And I do think, Mike, to your point too, I guarantee you part of his remit and part of his sales job, or why they hired him, that said, we are Arsenal. We should not be begging people to come here. We should not be looking like we're getting jerked around by these like also-ran clubs, and we're not like falling over stuff for specific players and making it clear that we have no other options and can't pivot. All of this is part of Berta's remit and what he was supposed to fix. And to the extent that he's actually doing it, I don't know, but he's pretty good with the PR, and it really does seem like multiple targets identified, talk to them, figure out the ones who want to come here, find deals that are reasonable and effectively pursue them at reasonable prices. And like, that's what you want your acquisitions team to do. And I think it's partially that Bert is doing objectively pretty well. And like, I do think that we were just really fucking awful at this for a long time. So like, having a competent professional execute a plan in a reasonable frame of time is something that's shocking to us. It's like when you get a transfer and like you don't realize how bad you had it until they come in. It's kind of like the Saliba and Gabriel when they first start playing. It's like we don't have assholes playing center back for Arsenal. Like, there's no more Mustafi. Mustafi's dead. Like, Kolasinac is dead. They're probably not dead. They're probably somewhere, but they're not here anymore, so they might as well be dead. Like, it's just,
I hope so.
Seeing professional competence immediately after incompetence is really, really, really stark and obvious, and it makes you feel like you wasted a lot of time, no matter what the setting.
Kelly, you make a really good point about how we operate differently, and that if we can't get our primary player, we don't waste whole windows hoping, and we're not begging players to come. I mean, Arteta had that famous interview a couple of years ago where he said, I want players who want to be wearing an Arsenal shirt. I want people who want to be here. Mm-hmm. Which made, I think, sometimes some of our past windows really confusing and frustrating, because we seem to chase players that didn't have the passion or the want to be here that we're seeing in this window. I mean, we chased Sesko all last summer. We chased him for part of the summer, and once it was clear that we were not going to be able to get the agent or the club to want to play with us, we pivoted. Same thing with Nico Williams in Spain. We chased him for a long time. When it became clear that he only wanted Barcelona, we said bye, and we pivoted to whoever. I guess we haven't really pivoted to a left winger necessarily. I guess Madueke in some regards could be that player. Who knows? But we haven't dawdled. We haven't treated this as a kind of a sequential exercise, meaning that we go for one, and once that one's done, then we go on to the next. Berta operates very much in parallel. He's got multiple things happening at the same time. He can negotiate for one player while establishing relations with another in a very different position, in a very different part of the pitch that we need. And we're not going to, I think, find ourselves in situations, at least I hope we're not. I can't foresee it given how we're operating, where we chase a player for a whole window and then we scramble and we get a Sterling on loan like we did last summer. I just don't see that happening anymore because of how much work is being done behind the scenes at the same time. And I think that's really encouraging.
Gathering my thoughts for the next little segment here. First and foremost, shout out to Cooner Works that called me out saying that I was going to start from the back, and I completely overlooked Kepa. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna involve both of the players. We'll talk about Kepa, then we're gonna talk about the controversy if you want about that is Madueke. But I want to, before we dive into Kepa here, Chris, and start talking about the players and Kepa. I saved it. I was kind of typing it up. Here's the list of the last 10 players that we've signed from Chelsea. We took a little bit of a gap, but we're starting from the newest, working ourselves backwards. We got Madueke, Kepa, Sterling, Kai, Jorginho, Willian, David Luiz, Sech. We all remember that transfer window. We loaned in Benayoun and, of course, Gallas. Those are the last 10 Chelsea signings. Listen, they owe us some money on some of those. Not it wasn't. That's not a stellar bunch of 10 right there, but those are the last 10. I think it's like 6 of them that came in within the last 5 years or so. So it was pretty consistent. If you think about it, dude, 7 out of 10 have been managed by Arteta. Luis, William, Jorginho, Kai, Sterling, Kepa, Madueke. And just as a supporter, just for SNGs, like, do you care, Chris, at all? Like, is this something that bothers you, or hey, if there's a deal to be made? Some fans even share the perspective of we're, quote, bailing them out. My 2 cents is that they'll just send the Todd Bowie will like sell his mom to his sister and somehow qualify for financial fair play regulations. So I literally don't view it as helping them. That's just my own personal perspective, because they have proven time and time again to find just a ridiculous amount of loopholes through all of these rules that the English Premier League seemingly have. I don't know if they really do. So I really don't look at it like, hey, we're helping them. But what is your feeling? I got to highlight this before we chat. O'Malley highlighted, says the Arsenal and Chelsea multi-club model is absolutely an amazing comment to start this conversation off with. That's why Chelsea's not in the Champions League. Wait, did they make it? They might be able to kick them out. They can't both play the Champions League. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah, the problem is all the players we send to them, they win trophies. All the players they send to us, we don't. That's the issue.
There's a little tiny glitch there, yeah.
Well, and Mike, I know you're asking me the question because you're the host, but I think you know what I'm going to say. It bothers the hell out of me because I hate Chelsea with a passion. I hate Chelsea with a passion. I know that I'm supposed to say that I hate Spurs and United more. I hate Chelsea more than all of them because of the way they've done their business and how they became the quote unquote super club that they are, out of nothing, out of a club that tried to sell did sell their stadium for £1 not very long ago in the grand scheme of things. Is now being invited to the Club World Cup because they were in the Champions League 1 year out of the whatever.
Winning the Club World Cup, you mean?
Well, they did, but I mean they won the Champions League 4 years ago, and that was the reason why they got invited to this Club World Cup. Let's never mind the fact that the last 3 years have been pretty mediocre. But I digress. I don't think it would bother me if we won stuff. The problem is every time we seem to take a player off their hands, I shouldn't say every time. The majority of the time we take a player off their hands, that player is not good for us. Let's take a look at this. William Gallas famously threw a strop on the field. Was not a very good player for us, in my opinion. I think he was better at Chelsea. I don't have much to say about Benayoun because I don't really remember his time at Arsenal. That was a kind of a gap in my years of watching Arsenal, so I don't really have much to say about that. Czech was the only player we bought in that summer after, not beating Leicester to the title when we should have bought more. He was ill fit. He was an ill fit for a modern game, and I think Chelsea did that, and they were happy to get rid of an aging Czech. I don't think Czech was nearly the player he was for us that he was for Chelsea all those years as one of the best Premier League keepers ever. David Luiz was a fine signing. He was a player that we needed to help us start to play a different way, with our center backs being ball-playing center backs, which you didn't have in Mustafi and Socrates. And so, he was part of an era along with, early stage of Ben White that got us playing in a way that, we're seeing at a very advanced stage now. So I can't necessarily fault that signing, but he was a bit of a clown car in defense, even if he was really good on the ball when we were in possession. Willian, enough said. Willian was a disaster. Jorginho was a great signing, £18 million. Was the leader in the clubhouse. I think that was maybe one of the best we've done from Chelsea, maybe the best, who knows. Scrolling up, Kai's been a great signing, I think. I know he's divisive, but I expect big things from him this season. I know that we're bringing in Gyokeres, hopefully, fingers crossed. But Kai has put in a ton of work on his body this summer to get himself ready for a new season, and I think he's going to come out with renewed focus. Sterling, disaster. Kepa, I think, is actually a good signing, which we'll talk about. Madueke, who knows? So I think at best you can say the results have been mixed, and I think if you're being really honest, I think we've mostly taken some pretty poor players off of Chelsea's hands, especially in the last 5 to 6 years, and that's only benefited Chelsea more so than us. So that's really frustrating for me, and I think it does color the way I view signings from them. And I think that was my initial reaction when I heard we were signing Madueke. It's like, oh great, another one that Chelsea is selling us for double what they got him for. He could be an amazing talent. He could be our starting left wing moving forward. Who knows? I have no idea. We'll see when he gets in an Arsenal shirt and plays in our system. But that was my initial take. And as I settled down, I started to talk myself into perhaps that being good business when you started to look at some of the things he's really good at. The fact that he's still young and that Arteta does pretty well with wingers and developing them. So I don't know what your question was, Mike, but maybe I can quickly say something about Kepa. Kepa is, I think, a great market buy. Kelly said earlier that he likes that we're taking some market opportunities. I think this is maybe the best market opportunity available to us this summer. Kepa famously was bought for 75 million or something from Chelsea, or for Chelsea from Spain. Was not a good signing. He famously had that strap on the pitch where he used to come off with sorry. Yeah, exactly. I think we all remember that Kepa, but I think when you look at the Kepa from last year when he played for Bournemouth on loan, I think he was probably a top 10 goalkeeper last year for Bournemouth, maybe even better.
Absolutely.
And his underlying stats show it. I mean, he was +2 post-shot XG, which means that he saved. He basically gave up 2 less goals than you expect a keeper to give up in the situations when he was saving shots, which is really good from a shot stopping perspective. And then, of course, everybody knows, he was one of the kind of first of this generation to come over from Spain that is really good in distribution with the ball at his feet. So I think stylistically, he's going to fit underneath our system. He'll be a good deputy to Raya in that way, and that we won't see a huge step down in the case that we need to play him in certain games to give Raya a rest, or if Raya is injured or gets suspended. And so for £5 million, I can overlook my hatred of Chelsea and say that's a really smart buy.
Well, also he's hardly a Chelsea player. He's been loaned out so much, but we have to remember. We have to remember too that he was playing matches for Real Madrid. I would even say that he was comfortably in the top half of keepers, and it's not only a numbers thing; it was the eye test. When you watched him play, he looked like a very competent mid-prime professional goalkeeper. He was again good with his feet, a good shot stopper. I think he's not as annoyingly effusive, but he's a very big communicator. This was at a point not so long ago, he was considered one of the best goalkeeping prospects ever. He was like there with Donnarumma, and now Kepa's a backup at Arsenal, having to recoup 5 of the 75 million that his acquisition costs, and now Donnarumma makes 600 grand a week plus has his own oil well to play for PSG and is considered great. So he's a really talented player. He's gone from being kind of a goof player to being very obviously a competent professional. And I think the market in a market that likes to dunk on Arsenal, or just media voices, were all surprised that Kepa was cool with being a backup. And that's what you want to hear. When we're bringing in a backup goalkeeper, that you should be oh wow, he could have started, because the refrain that I was hearing said, oh wow, he would have likely could have started somewhere else than the Premier League. But you got to think that, first of all, somebody's going to pay the release clause, and you don't get to exactly control where you go. It's at $5 million, so it's all in one whack up front. We're triggering the clause. He did just get married. He's lives in London, and all of these things. I think there's some soft factor stuff that Arsenal can offer too. You know what? This is completely just pulling stuff out, but there seems to be a pretty good, almost family friendly vibe about Arsenal. It doesn't seem like we're the Coke and Hose Club kind of. We seem like we're pretty. It's like Kai Havertz was like a groomsman at Martin Odegaard's wedding, and like it's Jurrien Timbers posting Bible quotes, and we're featuring our academy kids that come from strong families and have this like very cultivated like educational upbringing and all this. Like if you're gonna go somewhere, the Kepa's 30, so like this is like very much mid prime. I mean, I think it's a project where it's like, hey, I'm going to go there for a couple seasons. Hopefully we're going to win some big stuff and I can play a part. And after that, I can make some good money. And after that, I still got 4, 5, 6 years left of my career if I want to go start somewhere. So, and again, like we talked about before, if we win one of the big things, it's all of a sudden, oh shit, like Atletico Madrid are paying 35 million for Kepa after successfully winning the Premier League at Arsenal. Like that shit happens. So I don't know. Again, great market opportunity. I'm glad it's us. That seems like something another club would have gotten over on us. So again, Bert has some sort of magic in that room, man, because he's a closer. It's another one of those where it's like, oh, okay, that's really surprising to me that literally any Premier League club, and probably like for as good as Kepa is, like half the damn championship clubs could probably have afforded $5 million as RC for him. Like, he immediately go in the top half of the championship. Like, I'm certain that they pay 8 figures for players, especially starters that are going to make a big impact. So it's actually very. I think that a lot of magic went into that because again, Chelsea doesn't. $5 million is fucking nothing for them and their turnover and how much they buy and sell every year. So it's not like they needed the money either. So
it's a lot like the advantage that Liverpool has had with Kelleher. As the number 2, being probably the best backup goalkeeper in the league. And whenever Allison had to go out, there wasn't a major step down with Kelleher in goal. I think we're going to enjoy that kind of a similar advantage in that if and when Raya has to go out, I think we're going to see less of a drop off than we normally would, or that any other club would, because the gap, the delta between the two is not big.
Yeah, or the other thing too, where like Neto was so bad and so scary in his one appearance. It's like, okay, David, you could never take a day off. It's like, oh fuck, man. Like, it's like, no, David, you are playing every minute of every single game in every competition now because this guy just tried to save a ball with his hands like 45 yards out of goal. Like, this guy doesn't know what ends up anymore. He needs to retire, and that's the thing too, where it's like it's not just if something happens to Raya. It's Raya doesn't need to play every second of every single match in every competition now, which is the goal. And we couldn't play Neto in the League Cup last year, which is where he would play. And so you don't want to be starting literal children.
Yeah, 16-year-old.
16-year-olds who aren't even playing U21 football yet. Like, you don't want to be starting those people. So again, it's good transfer all around. Well done. I don't know how exactly we've talked him into doing it, but good for us. And he'll either prove his worth here or we'll sell him for a tidy profit.
Well, and before that we had Ramsdale and Turner, and in that particular situation, Ramsdale was again more like a Raya. He could shot stop, he could distribute, not maybe at the level. But Turner was I guess a decent shot stopper, but he was terrible with the ball at his feet. So like at least, and I think like the advantage here too is that we don't just have a competent backup. We have a more than competent backup who can play in a very similar style to the way we play when we play with the number 1. I think that's really, really critical. And to get that for $5 million is, again, outrageous business.
And especially to the, like one of my refrains, there's a couple people that are in a larger group chat that we're on Twitter too. I always go and call out when Raya is like absurdly high up the field touching. I always call out whenever I see that he has a touch in the opponent's half, because I think it's objectively hilarious that there's like, he'll have multiple touches in the opponent's half in the same match where you're, again, 60 yards away from your goal line as a goalkeeper with the ball on your feet. And I think Kepa has like you said, it's a really, really similar overlapping skill sets that we can keep the same patterns, and we don't have to be like, okay, everybody, we got to completely change how we progress the ball because we got our line keeper. We have like David Ospina who's standing 3 yards in the goal right now, so you can't pass it back to him. Like that's what you hope to avoid. So again, good all around.
Sorry, as an aside, I know we want to move forward. O'Malley goes Edu masterclass there, and it reminded me of something I saw on Twitter today where someone goes, someone should call up Edu just to fire him once again. And I just was like, yeah, the whole Berta the whole Berta summer we're having right now really does not make Edu's tenure, especially the last 12 months, look very good. So
no, and there's
I'm
more.
okay with it.
There's more to it than that, but I am totally. I understand that it's a PSR thing, and not want to give money to this thing, and him having one foot up there. There's a ton of different mitigating factors. I want the message to be to everybody in football that Bird is really good at his job. He came and got everything cleaned up. Now we're a tight knit ship. Everything's moving forward. He's a genius. That's what you want. It's like you want the guy, and I think he is. Like I said, I think he is quite good with the media and making himself look like a genius. Let's all believe it, because then when people call and agents are receiving phone calls, people are excited to hear from him. It's not Edu at the barbecue. It'd be like, Berta is crabby and doesn't like to talk to people, but boy, he can buy players. Cool. I'd love to hang out with Edu. I'm sure I'd have a lot more fun with that, but I'd rather have Berta slanging 9 figures of transfer fees for players than that. But
it's even reflecting on the other side as far as selling players, because we did have a brief maybe week of links for Trossard going to Turkey. Was it to Galatasaray? Is that where, or is Fenerbahce where
Fenerbahce, I think.
yeah, Fenerbahce.
And abruptly just ended saying, well, Arsenal won't budge on their price. So it works both ways. We're going in like hard asses saying, hey, this is our evaluation of the player. We're not really like willing too much from it. Mm-hmm. And then we're going in with our own stipulations. There's a lot of going on with the Gyokeres add-ons, but ultimately they got the deal. They convinced both the player and the agent, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, to participate in it. But on the flip side, they're saying, no, you can't come in for Charsad, who has, helped us with like 40, nearly 50 goals / assists in the last few seasons, and you can't have the bargain of getting him out of our club for 10 million. He still has a year in the contract, so I think it's pretty good. He's setting a very important precedent, so to say. So long may that continue. The only thing I was going to add on the Kepa thing, because I started Google searching his name while you two gentlemen were talking, was I'm shocked that he's 30, and and this would trigger me to look for his age. Is that he was okay coming in as a backup. And I know publicly he has to do the I'm here to fight for the spot. I know that he has to do that. But in all reality, he understands the role that he's going to participate in. And I've always asked for like a 35-year-old keeper. Mm-hmm. That's my idea of somebody that's like, okay, I got 3 more years. I'm going to sign a nice contract. I'm going to retire at this club. I wasn't expecting a not only a keeper that was so highly rated, that played at a high level last season in the First Division Football Club, also fairly very, very young for a goalkeeper. All of these combined, 5 million for a player of his level, really good business. So he
especially because the prime age for goalkeepers still extends well into your 30s, unlike any other position on the pitch. So if you're in your prime, you tend to want to be the number one somewhere, but the fact that he's happy being, or at least willing to come as number 2 and fight for that number 1, I think is positive. Keep going, Mike. Oh, Omar.
You caught me. No, you caught me at a different window. I was Google searching something. I was going to say, no, it's a great rotation for FA Cups and League Cups. I was going to say, in the past we had to either sacrifice or start our first goalkeeper. So I'm sure he'll get games. I just don't think we're gonna see heavy rotation in like the league or Champions League, so to say. So interesting to see how it's gonna play out. Now we all made peace, 5 million, and we got one over Chelsea, and we were all content over that one. Now let's move on to something slightly more, and I say slightly, and I am dramatically underplaying this, slightly more controversial, if you will, and that was the Noni Madueke deal. Kelly, this one caught fire seemingly overnight, and at first I thought it was like exclusively because of the Chelsea thing, and I thought, well, we already bought Kepa. That one didn't bring up too much of an issue, and I generally think it was because the amount, right? The 5 million, and they're like, okay, we could live with that for a backup goalkeeper. Now, two sides of this, man. A lot of people, including myself, have accused the club of doing the bare minimum and going for a cheap alternative, right? Yeah, and we've said in the past that it's really difficult to find backup for Bukayo Saka. Similar, I use this as an example, mostly like Spurs with Harry Kane. Mm-hmm. they had a load of not great strikers behind them because only not great strikers would come to their club because no good striker would go and say, oh yeah, I'm going to compete with the captain of England, the captain of Spurs, Harry Kane, an elite goal scorer. I'm going to go win him over and take his position. Nobody wanted to compete with that. I think Saka is pretty much exactly in the same area where it is. You know what? A matter of fact, I don't even know who you purchase as a quote upgrade.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that is me, being an Arsenal fan, but I can't come up with like a super easy upgrade on Bukayo Saka right now. And at the very least, maybe you guys have a name at the top of your head.
No.
But Madueke comes in as a backup. We're going to call him backup because, we don't expect him to start too much over Saka. I'm sure they'll rotate him in, but not taking his spot. It's a for 52 million pound or euro pound. Was it? Can somebody correct me on that?
52 million pound Madueke, I think is what we're going to be referring to him as now.
Madueke, yes. 52 million down to grain. Madueke scores again. We're going to be singing that one pretty soon. That's including add-ons. I think the adjusted fee was 48, if I wasn't mistaken. So not a load of add-ons. It was like substantially more add-ons for the like the Gyokeres deal. So is it the player? Is it the Chelsea? Or is it the 50 million for a backup? Because you could also spin it, in my opinion, that 50 million for a backup is a show of intent of saying, we're taking this serious. You're no longer going to look at a bench and know that those three academy players are never going to play. So now not only that, okay, I'm slightly diverse. I'm dragging this along, Kelly. I'm going to let you speak right now. I think it facilitates Arteta to rotate, and for those who don't believe that he likes to rotate, I think it puts the pressure at the very least to like now you as a fan, you can't look at him and say, or as a club as well, he can't look at you and say, I didn't have a player to rotate.
Yeah.
Yes, you did. So even that comes off the table for him. I'm not saying he's using an excuse, but at the same time, I can understand why he's not playing Doji Dubry or somebody in the league.
Yeah.
So, all these factors. Let's get into the Christian Madueke and the madness. Let's try to focus right now just on the football aspect and the transfer. We'll talk about the madness socially that happened with the vandalizing and the social media and all that. We'll touch upon that just towards the end of the conversation with him. So talk to me about Noni Madueke, the footballer, the 52 million pound footballer. Excuse me. Got to get that right for Chris.
This poor guy who's going to have his price tag attached. We never hear the 100 million pound Jack Grealish, who just was good for about 6 months and has been fucking drunk for the last 3 years. Nope, no big deal there. So I like Madueke, not because I like him as a person. I've liked him as a player. He was up the first time he played against Arsenal a couple seasons ago. He's incredibly dangerous. He's really big and strong and fast, and is a direct dribbler. And he loves having fullbacks out on an island out wide, which we desperately need. So that's good. His output is good. I think we had like 7-4 last year, 7-5. Played a lot of matches too. That was another one when you're kind of digging into him. It's like, okay, he started a lot in the Premier League. He played in almost every Premier League match. Like, this is a very significant part of the squad. And when he pulled it back even further, why are we paying this much for a backup? Well, he actually did, I think, start 10 matches towards the end of the year on the left side at Chelsea and looked very good and was considered by a lot of fans to be the best wide forward at the club at the time where he was playing on his primary foot out wide. So I think there's some, again, the character stuff. People don't like players that wear headbands. It's viewed as being ostentatious and silly. He might just have a Jorginho hairline, so let's not judge this young man before we see him around London.
Send him to Turkey.
Yeah, my God. Let's not. Maybe we'll come back with the headband that's like cutting off circulation the rest of his head going on, like the leather shoelace that Jorginho had. But I mean, this is a player who's 23 who is I think it's Arsenal vision has gotten really stuck on that he runs weird or moves weird. It's like he runs like a fast guy. I don't know. I'm not sure how that podcast is so fixated on the mechanics of how he runs as a way to like denigrate him as an athlete or player. Like I don't get that. I don't watch him and say that he looks super weird moving around at all. I mean, he's just a really good physical tools with reasonable output, and his advanced. Mike, I waited till the end to say this. His advanced metrics are fucking bonkers. So stats nerds think he's the greatest player, but like ultimately, I don't understand the footballing fucking to and fro. Saka's hamstring literally ripped off his bone last year. We got to take minutes out of him, and he obviously is good on the left too. He lives in London already. He doesn't have to change houses or anything. He's proven himself to be a good player in the league. If he's a pain in the ass, well, he's coming into a locker room where he has no seniority and no power. I bet he's going to fall in line and try to win some stuff. That would be my guess. All of this stuff, all these players that we brought in are very, very nice boys, and I think sometimes that we see that on the pitch. So like him and our other striker that's coming in seem to really be very aggressive, like tenacious, like constantly wanting to get them some. And I think our club has a lot of guys who will take an extra lateral touch and try to flick it and lay it off in the box. And we need some players that the point of this whole match is for me to score goals, and I will die trying to get my goals. So I don't know. I like it. And ultimately on the fee, people are getting on the goddamn fainting couch in another group that I haven't gotten myself kicked out of yet somehow.
Congratulations, the streak lives.
Like they were freaking out about it's like huge overpay. It's like he's like so we paid 52 for a 45 million player. Like we really getting pissed off. We've signed like 4 attackers in the last 4 seasons, and we're really getting mad that we paid 6 million too much. Like, well, Kepa's worth 20 and we just paid 5 for him. So does that make you feel better? Like, I don't know. The whole thing is I think people are underestimating him as a player. They don't like him as a person. 1, because he comes from Chelsea, and 2, because he called Wolverhampton a shithole, which it probably is. Let's be honest. I don't know. I've never been there. Anybody in the chat can tell me how great Wolverhampton is?
I've heard it's slightly better than San Jose. That's what I've been told. I don't know.
Yeah.
Shots fired.
Shots fired. Chris is mad about his bankrupt school district.
Damn it. I've heard enough shit about Chicago, Mike. I had to get you back somehow.
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure I hear gunshots in the background, Christian.
You guys think I live in this city? Well, joke's on you.
I know that Christian actually lives in the suburbs where all the other people who have the time to podcast about Arsenal would live. Yeah, I mean, really, I think this is we overpaid slightly for a player that is probably going to be pretty good. And if he isn't that good, he reportedly is on like low wages. We paid a little bit too much for him. I like him as a player. I don't care if he's a prick. I want him to come in and score goals and be a little selfish. So I think he could be a decent ingredient. But again, who did Spurs? Spurs just paid like two fees in excess of this for similar players, right? Like
55 million for Kudus. And then the thing is though with Morgan Gibbs White is that it's still back and forth because Nottingham Forest is accused Tottenham and the player of doing something shady. I haven't really read the story.
It's like tapping him up before
basically,
he would be able, right? Or like negotiate. I don't know. It seems like we negotiate all this stuff all the time. But yeah, like the punchline is though, it's like that is a fee consummate with a starting Premier League level inter transfer, especially a top like 6 to top 6 transfer. And I don't know if this is true or not. He was making 50 grand at Chelsea, and it sounds like he's going to be on a similar wage here. So like, we're talking about somebody who's making a third of what Cedric made when he was here 3 years ago, to invoke that idiot's name twice in the same podcast in 2025 or something. But like, if he's honestly going to be making 75 grand a year, who fucking cares? Like, would you rather pay 45 million and have to pay him 175 grand a week for 5 years? Like, that math doesn't math either. So I don't know. I think it's much ado about nothing. And Christian, you can take the unhinged Twitter on the literal streets reaction to this that makes me want to go buy his kit to spite idiots. So
well, I think Una Works in the chat says my feelings. I'm not quite as rosy as you are, Kelly, but I'm certainly less vexed about it than I was when I first heard that we were going after him and the fee that we were going to be paying for him. I think this is a pretty popular opinion within sensible Arsenal fans, in that I think people are waiting to see what we do in this transfer window before making judgments about whether or not Madueke is a great signing or just an average or maybe even a poor one. And that is, and I was going to ask you guys this question, but where does he have more appearances this year? Does he have more appearances on the right or the left? And I think that tells us a lot about how we think we think he's been bought to do. Because if he's simply just Saka's backup, I can see the argument for wanting a guy that is not a big fall off from Saka, such that the manager will be willing to play that player more because Saka needs more rest coming off a major hamstring injury. But B, I mean, if we're going to win what we want to win, we're going to have to start other players besides Saka at some point in some games, and we're going to have to produce on that side. We can't just throw a 15 million pound bum in there and expect to do things, to do really big things. So I see the argument for getting a player whose gap between Saka and him is not as big as what you might imagine for a backup. Because, everybody talks about Salah doesn't have really a backup. You probably couldn't even name who Salah's backup is because no one wants to come and sit behind Salah because Salah plays every game, almost every minute of every game, right? It's a hard position to fill. But 50 million for simply a backup feels a bit pricey. But no one cares about that if we actually do the rest of our business. If we get a left winger, if we upgrade on a left wing, which I think we know is a broken side, or at least a side that can be upgraded, and we sell one of Trossard or Martinelli, which I have an opinion on, but we can talk about that later. Then I think no one cares about Madueke's fee. I think we go, wow, great. We've massively raised the floor, and we've got a guy who can come in to spell Saka, and we probably have a guy who can come in and play left wing from time to time, maybe even be a starter in some occasions as well on the left-hand side. If Madueke is our only wing signing, that's where I think I have issues, because now we're going into another season where we're depending on a Martinelli and or also a Trossard, who is now another year older, a Martinelli who is now 3 years with his best season in his rearview mirror. Doesn't look like he can pick his head up to pick out a pass or make the correct decision in the final third. And I think there starts to be some doubts about whether Madueke was the right signing, given that we didn't get the business done on the left-hand side we really wanted to get done. Because for me, Madueke isn't. I don't know that he's an upgrade on the left-hand side. I guess I have to see him there. But I thought going into this transfer window, and we all did the transfer window special right at the beginning of the window where we said, who would we buy? You and I, Kelly, were both, again, player isn't available, but a Barcola-like signing, a guy who is sort of at that level or something near that level. And for me, the fact that Madueke plays the vast majority of his minutes on the right is not that guy. He might have a lot of talent that we can unlock, but he really hasn't done it consistently. He hasn't done anything consistently on the left-hand side. Most of his minutes have been played on the right. And so for us to depend on him to do that on the left, I think is a bit much.
I just wanted to continue to harp a little bit on the 50K a week thing. I think it's massive because normally it balances itself out. Gigi Scott and Archibald Ryan are pointing this out. Archibald Ryan, I think he said potentially he's essentially near Maulus Kelly and Nwaneri. That's how low he is as far as the wage bracket potentially. Yep. It's one of the reasons Kelly looks extremely confused right now. So his cat either snuck in, or the wage claim that I just made is just driving.
No, unrelated to you. My printer made a weird noise.
My printer made a weird noise. That's a first. Hey, nearly 200 episodes in, my printer made a weird noise. The 50K I think is massive. I think it played a massive part in how much we ended up paying for it. These just things that Gigi Scott just brought up. And then look, I just thought about this and look, and I know that everything is circumstantial when you're squad building, but when nobody's going to complain about the Madueke fee or anything is the minute Saka has to be out for a fucking strain for a month. And then everybody's going to be thrilled that all of a sudden, oh, look, it's not a single point of failure. Not a single point of failure at backup, not a single at our defense, not a single point of failure in our goalkeeper, not a single point of failure in our striker positions right now, not a single point of failure in our midfield. And our business is not even done, So I think that's when I think we're sitting back. We're sitting back and we're saying no. But we just got done with the season that we just had where we were all like we have no fucking person to play.
Anybody, any professional player, play them in attack.
We had Merino. We
were thinking about putting Calafiori at like striker. Come on, guys.
We had real conversations about Ricardo Calafiori playing minutes at striker in the Premier. We had minutes, multiple appearances with long minutes where Kieran Tierney was playing left wing in the Premier League in 2025. Like, this was dire. Let's not do that. Spend 50 million of Papa Stan's money to not have that happen ever again, please.
So that's kind of where I'm at as far as I think that. So Faye Gadier put a comment that I wanted to. She put one right now. She said to stomach the Noni signing, you need to get Eze, Rodrygo / Leao. So he wants Eze plus a left wing. Oslo mentioned that earlier in the live podcast. This is it's potentially taking the opportunity of signing a really good left back. Guna works as well. The fee gets me with this one specifically. It doesn't hinder, as long as it doesn't hinder any potential business. He's withholding his judgment to kind of see how the window plays out. So I think that's the big one. I think there's a 50-50 split amongst the fan base. I don't know what the actual percentage is, but I think there's a group of people that are now, if you get Eze, I am satisfied about. And I qualify myself in that one. Like, if you get Eze, I can't find a way to like complain a lot unless they start selling off depth. Like, if they sell a Trossard, Nwaneri, I would be more in the camp of, sorry, you're going to go get that Rodrigo guy you keep on talking about. If both of them stayed, and you know, it's important to me most of the time to try my best, as long as I'm not taking the piss, is to stay as consistent as possible. And I said at the beginning of the window that the left wing wasn't a massive priority for me. So it wasn't my biggest issue. My depth was the biggest issue. The midfield was my biggest issue. So the Eze comes in, you know, gives us so much quality. With, you know, no regards to Mendy, et cetera, et cetera. I'm at the point where I'm content with this window, and I got nothing to say as far as on ingoings. After that, go get your money for, hopefully not Kivior, but go get your money for Nelson, Vieira, you know, loan out whatever people I want to be loaned out and stuff like that, and then you just go from there. So I'm content with this window with Eze coming in. A lot of people are looking at the Madueke thing, and we're still kind of roping him in because the feeling is, Kelly, is that his arrival means no Rodrigo. Now, I look at this like we were linked with him more or less throughout the window. They're saying, hey, Rodrigo might leave. I'm taking this approach of there's easy links to make.
Yeah.
There's easy to be like, oh, Arsenal have shopped at Real Madrid. Real Madrid no longer want Rodrigo. Arsenal fans not everybody's in love with Martinelli / Trossard. And there's some things that I just think they're like just some slam dunks. I'm trying to remember. There was another like super easy. It was like a Serie A player, and we were like, we needed a left back or something. I'm like, oh, guaranteed we're gonna be linked with him because it's such a fucking easy thing because there's the glaring striker / hole in our squad that everybody's going to be linked in that position. So maybe it's because I was never completely bought into the, oh wow, we might sign Rodrigo. Maybe it's I never got my hopes up for that type of signing, and then between me not getting my hopes up for Rodrigo and then the window the club just had, I'm kind of at peace with Madueke and potentially Eze coming in. And if you told me, hey, we're not going to get that left-sided winger, in my brain, my expectations that I've set for the club and the size of the club and how we operated in the past, I can make peace because I think are we near or past the 200 million mark at this point? Zubimendi 50, Zubimendi 50, Gyokeres 80, Madueke 50. So that's 100 and something, right? 150, 180 right there. So yeah. So I don't know. I'm gonna say within reason from what I'm known to be Arsenal for the last decade or so. 189-ish, 189,000-ish. Thank you, Jordan.
Yeah,
I'm
a
at
million-ish.
Yeah, million-ish. Thank you. And that's not even including the potential of Eze, which is reported 60, 65 for his release clause. I've made peace for it, so I just kind of want to know, where are you, Kelly, as far as, like, do you believe at all the Madueke thing is going to have an impact on it? Do you think if we did not potentially get Madueke, Rodrygo was a reality for you?
Yeah, I think getting Madueke means that we're not getting Rodrigo. I do agree that I think a lot of the Rodrigo links are Arsenal want to upgrade their attack and Rodrigo's available. And any links, it's been nothing specific. It's all been like Arsenal see value in Rodrigo. It's like, okay, well, he's a player at Real Madrid and he plays for the Brazilian national team and he scored 10 goals in the Liga a couple seasons ago. So I guess that's somebody. The issue that I have with Rodrigo is I think Martinelli could score 6 goals like Rodrigo did last year if he played in Real Madrid. Like the idea that somebody just because he's I don't slaughter for this. Rodrigo has scored 10 goals in a season 2 years ago, and 3 years ago he scored 9. Otherwise, he has scored 6 and 4 and 1 and 2. And he's like 25. He's going to, it was like 24 and a half. So he'll turn 25 this year. Like, other than having a single name and being from Brazil, I don't understand what distinguishes this player. And I've been finger wagged by a lot of groups talking about who he is. He's unbelievably, obviously world class. It's like, okay, then why doesn't he not score more goals? And why is he not starting more? And if it's because Vinicius and Mbappe are ahead of him, why did they get them if they had you? If you're so great and you're world class, why did he go out and keep getting redundant players in your position that are better than you? It seems pretty easy to be better than you by just buying another winger that's better than you. They just bought a fucking guy from Argentina who's like 17 and put him directly in the Club World Cup. And apparently he's also better than Rodrigo because he started playing right away as well. So, like, the idea that we would pay, and this is what it would take, at least 70 to 80 million on a transfer for this guy, and he'd be making at least 250K. Like, how much does he make? He's got to make 200K now on his second contract in Madrid after Castillo.
I bet he's close to 300K.
Yeah, like, can you imagine a universe where this guy comes in? And again, like, there's other personal, like, he seems really comfortable at Real Madrid. It doesn't, anybody who's getting so obviously, like, phased out in the front of the whole goddamn world by the new manager, it's like, okay, you're very clearly not in our plans. Like, get the fuck out of our club. We're not even going to play you in this. We're going to put a 65th game in other guys' legs in the Club World Cup and a cup that nobody gives a shit about. Like, he still is like, all the stuff is like, oh, he's non-committal and when he's going to leave or not. Now, like, well, that's Real Madrid people trying to manage that. I don't know. Like, I just don't get the Rodrigo thing. If he was Rod Johnson from fucking Stevenage, I think he'd cost about 40 million with the stats and everything. I think that he's Brazilian and plays for Real Madrid and has one name. There's an aura that comes with this player that I don't understand. He's a good upper level European level wide forward. He plays mostly on the left, who can reluctantly play in other positions. Like, paying 80 million and paying 300 grand a week for fucking that, like, pass. No, absolutely. Like, we're bitching about paying too much money for Madueke, who's going to make dirt for money and is on a really comparable transfer fee. I don't get it. I think we're getting blinded by the lily whites over there a little bit in Madrid, and they're selling us their at least Chelsea sells us their cast-offs for like 50 million instead of 80.
Guys, I haven't. Go ahead, Mike. I was going to say I haven't done this in a while, guys. So I just have to do this. I mean, I just found this on Twitter. I just had to share this. Rodrigo has developed hemorrhoids after spending 3 consecutive games on the bench for Real Madrid. I mean, we want a guy with a hemorrhoid problem, or like this one. Here it goes. Rodrigo's father is launching a bench business and believes his son's experience could help turn it into a multi-million-dollar venture. I mean, is this the unserious footballer guys we really want to bring to Arsenal? I think not.
He has other interests, like Matthew Fleming. He has other interests.
You know what, Chris? I was 50-50 until those 2 memes right there. Now like Rodrigo out already.
I mean, in all seriousness, the reports out are still saying that Rodrigo wants to stay at Real Madrid. And again, to our conversation earlier, it feels to me like Rodrigo isn't a guy that wants to come to Arsenal. And if that's the case, then I don't think that we should be going after a player who A, doesn't seem all that excited, B, where the mooted transfer fee is 100 million. And Real Madrid will not get that, but that's kind of where they're negotiating from. And C, to Kelly's point, you're looking at a 25-year-old player from Brazil with a single name, and while he could hit playing full time on the left-hand side, that's a huge outlay of money for a guy that has those two kind of dings in points A and point B I made earlier. So
the second biggest transfer in Arsenal's history.
Yes, exactly.
And Declan Rice was the most sure thing. We spent a year lining that up. Us just pivoting in Jill, like, oh, Rodrigo's available, so let's go and blow our second biggest transfer ever on this guy. I just don't think it's not going to happen. I don't want it to happen. I would be infinitely more nervous about Rodrigo coming in for that price and wage than I am for Madueke coming in at his transfer fee and wage. Infinitely.
Yeah.
Because there's not a lot of ways you can extricate yourself from that transfer unless you talk him into going to Saudi and you get him out of here before his value tanks too much. Like, look at whatever the fat guy is for United. I forgot what his name is because he's so bad now. The Brazil guy,
Luke Shaw.
It's the other fat guy for United.
So
I mean, what do you guys make of the left wing situation? Anyways, Eze's not a typical left wing, although we're all very excited about him. He's more of an interior player, central player. If he is coming in to play more of a quote unquote left wing role, I have to imagine that Arteta is going to play that left side quite differently. He's not going to stick Eze on the touchline, where I think the further away from goal you put him, I think the less effective he becomes. He's a great dribbler, but we haven't seen him do that for Palace. So I don't know you can ask a 27-year-old to all of a sudden do something different than he's always done and expect a lot of great things. But like, you look at the left wing market, I mean, the other guy that we keep getting linked with over and over again by Ornstein is Anthony Gordon. His output isn't any better than Martinelli's. I'm not convinced by him at all either. And I'm not necessarily keen on giving Newcastle 65 million pounds or whatever they're going to ask for Gordon. So it looks like, again, we talked about early Barcola's not moving. Kvaratskhelia
Already
would have loved to had him 18 months ago, 12 months ago even, but that boat sailed. Who else do we look at left wing? I mean, if
Semenyo might not be moving at all, I think, given the amount of money that they're making.
Hold on, let me Google search Chelsea left wingers.
Who's the Ukrainian guy? What's he up to? I haven't heard about him.
Mudryk? Yeah, he's not going to be available for 3 years. So
yeah, it's gotta go to pay him.
I did jokingly say, like, somebody said that Rodrigo was linked to Chelsea a few weeks ago, and I'm like, well, on the bright side, he'll end up at Arsenal eventually.
Every under 35 winger that was born in a country that's not America, Todd Bowley has a file on that he's sniffing around with. Like, a winger could move. Yes, him. That's the decision-making apparatus for Chelsea, I think. A wide forward, you say? Yes, I would like him. How many years? 7. Do it, Todd.
I mean, here's another wild thought. And John in our back channel chat that the three of us are in, and Jordan is in as well, and if Dean's in the chat, he's also there, has talked about, is it wild to think of, once Gyokeres comes in, that maybe he spends time on the left, but he just runs channels, right? As opposed to, again, having his feet on the white line on the side, the touch line. Mm-hmm. Do we just stick a Gyokeres up there and have him run channels, maybe move, have Kai play center forward in that role, or maybe play Martinelli in the center? I don't know, but I think we could maybe see some interesting tactical variation this year if we'd end up not bringing in a traditional left winger who has been playing like Martinelli has, just because I think we might have to do that out of necessity.
And it's not working. Like, what we did last year did not work very well. It had.
Yeah. Is that a personnel problem or a tactical problem? We don't know.
Yeah, and again, when we have a lot of, like, I think the left side is like always been Arteta's like goof side. And I think that it's like everything else is really rigid and traditional. And then the left side of the pitch is just fucking chaos, where it's you got a center forward playing left wing, or Martinelli, who has this weird skill set. And then Miles Lewis-Skelly's a midfielder's behind him. And then Declan Rice is playing the 8 sometimes. And Marino's playing center forward from the 8. Like Calafiori is just his like an absolute just like fucking random can of skill that you just spray all over the pitch. He's running all, he's making center forward runs and stuff. Like, I think the left side is just the goof line. Like, I think he will fuck around on that left side a lot more. So that includes putting Madueke on his primary foot and having a traditional touchline cross winger in there. Like, I agree too with Gyokeres when he's in. I think there's going to be lineups of death where we're trying to close games where Kai's playing center forward, Marino is playing a withdrawn role, Gyokeres is out there, and Saka's out there, and we basically have 4 people just bombing the box to try to score goals. Like, that's going to be a weird lineup that exists out there. And then Norgard and Zubamendi will be sitting deep in a double pivot, and they'll just be kicking the fucking ball off the pitch. And that's what we're going to do. Like, so I do think, yeah, it's tactical variation. And I do think, too, like, the goal for them is to play, like, 60 matches next year. And that's – I just think that they're open to fresh tactics on the left side. Whatever Martinelli does not work. That position is not producing the last 2 seasons of goals. So, like, if you're going to play him like an inside forward and have the fullback overlap, great. If you're going to, again, play, I don't know. It's one of those things where I really do think that they're kind of chucking that whatever left wing has been doing for the last 2 years and saying we're going to do something different. What that exactly is kind of in flux and depends on personnel and game state.
Which is super wild considering on this podcast 4 years ago, we were talking about how the left side was the only functioning side of our attack and everything went through Tierney. And we were very left side leaning, and we haven't been that way since Saka became our right wing and Ben White moved over to right back and Odegaard was our right 8. And that's been our superstar side. And it's been the left side that's struggled. So I'd love to see more of a balance, not to take away opportunities from the right-hand side, but I think we make our right side even more effective when the left-hand side actually is threatening. And we haven't had that in a long time.
Where it's like fighting a boxer that's doing like a bolo punch where like the right-hand side is like really protecting, the other one's like that. That's what our left side is. And just fucking making a bunch of noise and kind of whacking in the ear and then distracting you so the right side can get to work. Like
trying to drive a car like on a long road trip and the left-hand side's tires are flat and the right-hand side's tires are like fully inflated and you're like trying to drive straight down the road and it's like going like this. It's not been great.
So just to finish off the Rodrygo thing, just a few, just bullet points here for me. Rodrigo never, and maybe it might be because he just seems like a down-to-earth, humble guy. He never seemed like he belonged at Real Madrid to me, and I could say that because Avereo's not in the live chat, and he won't kill me for that. Yeah. I think at the price that he's coming, he's not substantially better as far as final third output, and we know that most likely he can't keep up with the defensive qualities that Martinelli brings us. And last little bullet point is I absolutely refute the idea that people keep on referring to him as a Alexis Sanchez signing. No. Because Alexis Sanchez, I was baffled that they wanted to sell him. And it was because he couldn't get in because I think they had just bought Fabregas or I forgot what was there from. Pedro was lighting the world on fire. I forgot exactly what was the situation where he had to leave. So just those are just bullet points just to seal up the Rodrygo thing. The left wing thing that you guys were discussing, I still think that, and Digi Scott said something in the live chat saying, with all due respect, in the nicest way possible, here it is, in the nicest way possible, what the fans want and what is actually good for the squad and what Arteta wants are likely to be very different. And I've come to terms with that, and I've said this more than once with Martinelli, that potentially Martinelli might be doing something tactically, potentially, for like the first couple of games of Brazil, Carlito Ancelotti did nothing but praise him. And somehow he keeps on sticking around at Arsenal, and Arteta keeps on picking him for the left wing. So I think that he's doing something that the manager really likes. We all saw the All or Nothing documentary of how much they love him and the work ethic and everything that he puts in for the squad. And potentially there's something there that we might not be seen. So we'll see what having a more solid, slightly more defensive left 8 in the form of Declan Rice, because I do believe that's where the lion's share of his position is going to be. A more consistent left back, whether that's going to be Timber or Miles Lewis-Skelly, and see his new development, how he's going to play out with Gyokeres, which is going to kind of round off our little segment here of talking about our new strikers. Chris, I would like to refute the idea of him playing on the left. I'm saying, and I know that you brought it up because of John, because we always do this, like, where else can they play? And like, listen, guys, we've been very consistently saying that we need somebody that could put the ball in the fucking net, and he seems to find a way to put the ball in the fucking net in a large variety of ways. Like, I've been just pissing off countless hours of my day just looking at highlights of things that this guy does. And by the way, he knows how to score a penalty as well. He strikes the ball very hard in his penalties. It's something that stood out. Now, I'm not going to have the debate as far as who's going to take the penalties over, because we see it's been Saka, it's been Odegaard, it's been Kai Havertz. So, that's up for the players to have it on the pitch, and Arteta for them to decide off the pitch. But I think we finally got our center forward, guys, and I'll lead off the conversation, and you could get the ball rolling after me, Chris. I just wanted to say that we spoke about Berta a little bit previously on this podcast on how he operates. I've mentioned how frustrated I was, not only on this podcast but on Loose Cannons with Ars Bros, Ryan and Tanner, BG Bearded Gooner, that I was incredibly frustrated that we didn't get the Šeško deal over the line. I've come to terms that Leipzig was being completely irrational with their approach of what they were asking. I've came to peace that the gentleman's agreement, I mean, my guy got played, but at the same time, Šeško's not being respected for the gentleman's agreement. Gyokeres didn't get respected. And Gyokeres' whole deal was like, hold on, fuck you. You made me this promise. That's what this gentleman agreement was all about. And whilst I was disappointed that Šeško didn't get signed, I was disappointed with the time invested in Šeško and what it could have represented last January. I was disappointed that it was dragging on for so long. But after, similar to Norgard that I mentioned earlier, the amount of effort that Gyokeres put to make this deal happen, the amount of effort that his flippant agent put forward to make this deal happen, it's really difficult not to embrace him already for the effort that he had. Again, once again, the tagline of "He only won in Arsenal" was floated around a lot. And we're talking about a player that has scored a ridiculous amount of goals. I think the last season or the season before, something like 50 goals. And somebody jokingly said, like, well, when he converts to England, what if he's only okay, well, what happened is if he's only half as good? 25 goals? When was the last time we fucking saw that? An Arsenal player. So I'm genuinely excited. I will say that I don't see them drastically different. I just was more of a time invested for Šeško. So I'm thrilled about this arrival, record-breaking arrival. Going to hit the ground running. I still have the inkling that Kai's going to start the first game of the season unless this guy just does something miraculous in preseason. But let's talk about our new starting striker, Chris.
Yeah, Tim Stillman said something that I thought was really insightful about him and his enthusiasm for coming to Arsenal and just getting this move, and how much he was willing to risk in terms of his career in Portugal in order to make that happen. I mean, this is the guy that basically said, I'm not coming back. He didn't come to the first 2 days of training under threat from his club. He didn't divorce. He broke up with his girlfriend in Portugal. This man has sacrificed quite a bit in the short term to hopefully get this move that he wants. And Tim Stillman said, this guy's 26. He can't wait another year to get the contract of his life to play in the Champions League, to play at a top club. This is his last chance. If he doesn't make it happen, he's not going to have this chance again. And so I think what we're seeing is a player who realizes that, who says, and I don't know why, honestly, none of us know why he's perhaps prioritizing Arsenal over any other team that may be after him. Who knows who else has courted him from a elite footballing standpoint. But the fact that he has been willing to make his desires very public, to sacrifice things in the short term, and to do everything he can, including getting his agent to forfeit some fees. I don't know how he did that as well. And I think speaks volumes about how much he really wants to make this move happen. So, I mean, that's a really big testament to the mindset, the mentality, the passion, the desire of this player. Again, those are all intangible things, but I think we'd all agree that you'd much rather have a player who has something to prove, who wants to be at the club that he's being bought for, not just paid in lip service, but actually paid in terms of actual real action and behaviors. And I think we're seeing that he's already doing the desired behaviors you'd want to see in a player who, is desperate to be at Arsenal and to show what he's made of. So that's a really positive sign. In terms of what we might expect from him on the pitch, I share with you guys a graph that was been making the rounds by Billy Carpenter. And on one axis, it's runs in behind, and the other is like speed sprints, and he is like the furthest up and to the right on this graph of any striker in the world, which tells you that not only is he really good at the thing that's eye-catching, which I think was a bit of my concern in that, in Portugal for Sporting, on top of the fact that the competition is not nearly as good, especially when you get beyond the top 3 teams. They're more championship level teams, but also the fact that we just don't get that much space to play into all that often as Arsenal, because we face so many mid-block and low blocks. But when we do, I think he'll be a killer, because we've got Odegaard, we've got Zubimendi, who's really good at that kind of first-time killer pass through the lines. Rice is very competent at that. We've got a bunch of players now that will surround him to be able to take advantage of those runs first time that he's willing to do repeatedly over 90 minutes. So that's really positive. But the other thing is that even when we don't have that opportunity in transition, I think what he's going to do is make a lot of runs off the back shoulder of the back 4, which is going to put a lot of pressure on them, which is going to make that line fall that much deeper, which will allow a lot more space in between the back line and that midfield line for people like Odegaard, if he comes, Rice, to receive the ball and have time and space on the ball in dangerous areas, and especially dangerous areas centrally. So I'm excited about that part of his game as well. And he's shown that he is a willing runner for a long time, not just on the ball, but without the ball, both in possession and out of possession. And as we know, Arteta loves a guy who will kill himself for the badge, who will run nonstop. And we saw that with Kai last year, and Kai doesn't have nearly the pace or the physicality that maybe he does now, but last year he didn't, like a Gyokeres. And so I think he's going to make other players better. I think Odegaard's going to be better next year, because he's going to have a guy who makes runs through lines. But he's also going to have a guy who's going to create space for Odegaard to receive passes in more dangerous areas. So all in all, he was not my choice. I was a bit more on the Sesko side, but if we're trying to win now, and we've been having a little bit of a conversation in the chat about, the fact that this process has to produce something now, he is a bigger bet, I think, to produce end product for the next 2 to 3 years than Sesko was or is, just because of the very nature of his experience. He'll be a one contract guy. We won't get another contract with him. He'll take a 4 or 5 year contract. He'll be 30, 31. And I doubt we'll re-up with him. If it is, it's going to be for, a year or 2 afterwards. But this is going to be his one big contract at Arsenal. He's going to want to make it pay off. We're going to want him to make it pay off. And he's a win now buy. So let's see what he's got. But there's a lot of things to like in his game. And I think there's a lot of ways you can talk yourself into seeing how in many different game states he's going to make us better. He's going to be better because he's surrounded by better players. And I'm excited.
He kicks the ball into the goal a lot and has for years. We need more players who can kick the fucking ball hard into the goal. Yes. Sesko kicks the ball really hard. I know. This is
smart IQ.
This is goes back to my baseline theory of football. If you have a really good striker, a really good goal scorer, and a really good goalkeeper, you're probably going to be really good. Like those two things, kind of what the sandwich of everything else that happens in between can be greatly changed by just having elite quality in those two positions. But anyway, yeah, he's an adult. He has a high floor for output because he scores all the fucking time. Even if you shit on him for penalties, he's an excellent penalty kick taker. A lot of times he was drawing those penalties because he's an absolute fucking bowling ball in the box and people are swatting at him. And because of his direct and physical running style means he gets brought down in the box more. And that's just part of the deal. The price at which we got him seems comical given that his price tag fairly recently it was assumed that he would have had to have cost 90 to 100 million, and that was used as a detraction with all the other kind of warts on him, which is his age, and he's not a particularly high prolific header of the ball, and his output versus quality of opponent, like all those were legitimate warts on him. Getting him for what we were going to get him from like 62 plus 10 is really good, and especially assuming that he's going to go on a strong but not astronomical wage. He's not going to be. I could be shocked if he's going to be among the top cohort of age or of earners in the club. Like not in that kind of.
We think like 150 to 180 somewhere in there.
Yeah, like I mean that's a starting level player, which is just fine with me as long as you're not putting him at 300K a week, anything like that. Like, I do have a pet theory for Šeško. I think that he probably has a handshake deal with somebody, and that's why Leipzig are so keen to leave 75 million on the table, and he's not pushing for anything. I think we'll probably see something pop up next year in the January or something like that. But if this player at this price with this history and this, I mean, he was owned by Brighton. He played in the country, so it's not like he's coming out of the clear blue sky. He's going to settle in. I don't think this is a massive risk. Like, maybe just, I don't know what my problem is. I don't think that he or Madueke are huge risks. I really don't. I think they're both going to be good players. Maybe they might not be Ballon d'Or players, either of them, obviously, but like, we almost won the league 3 years in a row without these guys and with some pretty big clompers and some pretty little kids kind of sitting on the bench doing jack shit. So like, if you add a guy who scores 30 goals every season, it's probably going to be just fine. If he's good, if he has half of his output, if it's a 50% reduction in output, that's the difference between his league and our league. It means that he scored 20 goals, 18 goals, and he's one of the top scorers. If he's a 50% reduction, non-penalty goal output, great. He's still our leading goal scorer. He doesn't have to be very good or very prolific to be a lot better than what we had. And make a huge difference. We're trying to get 15 to 25 more goals. You plug him in, is he going to get 15 for you? Probably. Would they have existed without him? Probably not. I don't know. That's just it's me. As close as I get to like barely being Mr. Brightside. Yeah, BX. He scored almost 100 goals in the last 2 seasons. Like at some point, it's not just because Portugal sucks.
Yeah, because there's other strikers there.
Other strikers don't score.
Darwin Núñez didn't score that many goals.
And that's another comparison. Didn't Darwin score like 28 goals? And it's like, oh, well, look what Núñez did. It's like, okay, great. But Gyokeres scored like 50 of them and not 30. So you know that 50 is a pretty large percentage more than 30. So I'm sorry. I'm doing my things. I'm doing my things again.
No, you had me curious. So to answer your question, first, dude, this is actually wild. 2020-21, Núñez only scored 6 goals out of 29 games.
Of course.
Okay, 21-22, 28 matches, 26 games. So he had one good season with a massive return, and that was it. But prior to that, he hadn't hit double digits. So that's interesting. Yeah. Just like I said, I was pissing away a lot of time watching highlights. A few things that stood out, and this is just YouTube scouting here, guys. So if you want like actual numbers and other better metrics, what's the phrase that I hate, Chris? Deep line metrics. I'm sure they're out there.
Underlying metrics, yeah.
Underlying metrics. There you go. I'm sure they're out there for you guys to see. But again, little bullet points as host here. His runs are immaculate. His strength is insane. I saw so many of the chances that he created was him making a run, holding off the defender. He created shots even versus versus Jordan's comment just made a big giggle. Well played, Jordan. He created shots versus Gabriel and Saliba, who, by the way, we rate very highly as supporters. And he has a really good ability in creating shots and creating space in very tight spaces. I saw tons of goals in which he receives the goal with his back to goal, and he manages to flip around and get a shot off quite consistently. So, again, we had 97 goals to look at. So I saw a lot of them goals, a few headers, tons of penalties, well shot penalties. So very enthusiastic. And like I said, I don't think there is a massive issue. And Chris said, Gyokeres wasn't his first player that he wanted. It wasn't mine. Kelly has been doing the Bane celebration for the last 62 podcasts now as the outro. So Kelly was ready for this. But I will say this: like I am a big fan at saying, feel free to change your mind. Like this whole thing, like I'm not going to be miserable the 3, 4, 5 years that Gyokeres is with Arsenal because we didn't sign Sesko that one time. So I would always say, be open to changing your mind. Be open to different perspectives, and then just go from there is what I like to say.
Mike, I think you asked for underlying metrics. I have an underlying metric chart.
No, I never. No, I specifically said I hate them.
No. I think you were asking for it.
Oh, okay, I asked. Okay, so we're married now. We're just hearing what we want to hear. Okay.
Exactly. No, can I just share this really quickly though?
Yes, screenshot.
If you've ever seen this chart, if you've ever seen a chart like this, you will know that when these pieces of the pie go out to the edges of the pie, that's really good, and if they're really close to the center, that's really bad. And so I'm speaking at a very layman's terms here. You can see that most of his pies, like the light green here, the aqua color, is his attacking metrics. They are literally like top 1% in 3 of those categories: in non-penalty XG, in shots total, and shot creating actions, meaning he just scores a shit ton of goals or has a chance to. And then you can see he's also a really good passer. So 98th percentile on key passes, 93rd percentile on passes into the penalty area. He doesn't really cross as much, but you don't really want that guy to be crossing. You want him to be on the end of crosses. His non-penalty goals are at the 96th percentile. What it means is that he is a world-class attacker by all underlying metrics. Now, again, you have to discount a little bit the league he's coming from, but you cannot turn your nose up at a guy who has these kind of metrics. And you look at his dribbling and carrying, the only thing he's not at quite as prolific in, but still top 75% is his successful take-on percentage, which means that he, the 75% of the time he takes on a guy with the dribble, he is successful versus not. But everything else, again, is at a world-class level: 99%, 98%, 98%, 97%. And if you're worried about the tax that you have to pay because he's coming from the Portuguese league, know that his Champions League stats almost look just as good. So when he plays Champions League level teams, and that's not just, your top team from Romania or your top team from Greece or your top team from, Azerbaijan or whatever the hell, but it's like he's playing against, your Real Madrids, your Bayerns, your et ceteras. His drop off is not much. So that gives me a lot of hope looking at that data and seeing, he does it against Farmers. He does it against Champions League, championship level kinds of clubs that he experiences a lot in his domestic league. But at a Champions League level, he also scores a lot of goals. And I saw somebody post it today. I can't find it. They were comparing Gyokeres's Champions League output in terms of goals and assists versus Isak's versus somebody else. And Isak, I think, scored 1 goal in the Champions League, and I think Gyokeres had like 9. So the guy is producing at the top level outside of his domestic league, and I think we should take that as a very positive sign. For anybody who loves metrics and data, there you go.
There you go. We actually have a question, Chris. So Nuga, where can you get that chart?
Yes. So I took it from, if you look up Billy Carpenter on Substack, Billy Carpenter is a great resource for scouting analysis. He wrote a huge piece on kind of ranking potential strikers. He was scouting the strikers that Arsenal could be looking at. I think he wrote this particular piece in June of this year. This is kind of before we were maybe completely linked to Šeško. And he was looking at guys like Ekatike, and he looked at Julian Alvarez, and he looked at Isak, of course. And then, of course, guys down that were a bit lower, people like Girassi from Dortmund, Sorloth from Madrid, Mateta from Crystal Palace, Kelly's favorite, Matteo Retegui from Atlanta, Ali Watkins, Liam Delap, on and on and on. So he's a great resource. If you look up on Substack, Billy Carpenter, he writes a lot of great pieces that are analytical and scouting in nature.
Just one comment from Digi Scott. Thank you for answering that question for him, because I was going to just suggest, hey, feel free to screenshot it, but I wanted you to actually take that answer, Chris, because you could actually give, the plug to whom you actually got it from, so they could hopefully navigate to their page, check that out. Digi Scott just made me just laugh because I said, I'm not going to be better about the Šeško thing, and Digi Scott is peak social media now. He's friend of the channel, and we know him, and we know this is banter. But he says, nah, Viktor can go tackle fuck himself, something like that, to that extent. The spelling is a little odd. So DigiScott's going to choose to be upset for the next 5 years. And, hey, I dig it. I could go with that. We're going to end the pod. It's getting late for everybody on this podcast right now. Live chat, you have been absolutely amazing. We summed up 6-7 of our signings. I spoke a little bit about Rodrigo and Eze. Next week we will probably put something on. I did plug in the podcast link, and for those of you on audio, maybe potentially you could get a YouTube channel, or I'm going to do a community post on the YouTube channel as well, along with Twitter, asking for suggestions for a fun game, for a bingo card game that we're going to do throughout the entire season. We're going to challenge the NAP host versus the live chat and dear listeners. So I'm hoping that we could have some fun with that. So keep your eyes open. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Follow us on Twitter. I put the link into the pod and into the live chat. We're going to call that a night because it's getting late for all of us. Chris has been West Suburban AFC on the Twitters. My good friend Kelly at the bottom of the screen, South Metro AFC, getting ready with the Bane. Just want to say thank you so much for all of the live chat, everybody. You guys find us on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts if you want us on audio. If not, just continue watching us on YouTube. Chris brings the mugs and the stats. Vamonos. See you next time, chat.
Right foot this time, Martin Odegaard.
Zinchenko from Kepa. Martinelli tiptoeing in. Predatory, perfect. There is a gorgeous arrogance about Arsenal now.
It really is. They are enjoying every second of this.